Genshin's new update is here, and with it we got a very special event like we never got before. A free 5-star selector, where we can choose 1 out of the 7 5-stars from the standard banner to get completely for free. And in this video I'm gonna go over who I think is the best choice, and then I'm also gonna choose my 5-star on both my main and my free-to-play alt account. So yeah, let's first answer the question of who I think is the best one to choose, and the answer is honestly simply choose whoever you like the most. If one of these 7 characters is one of your favorites, then just go for it. Genshin is not the kind of game where you have to meticulously min-max everything, so even if you want Chi-Chi for example, there's nothing wrong with that. So first and foremost, in my humble opinion, you should always just choose the character that you like the most. That's the short answer. But of course not everyone has a clear favorite among these standard banner characters, and some of you might still just want to choose the quote-unquote best one here. So yeah, let's talk about how good they actually are and which one I would recommend choosing in terms of meta. And yeah, there's also a short and long answer to this. The short answer being Jean. And I don't just say that because Jean is my personal favorite among these characters. No, Jean really is the best standard banner character as long as you have Furina. Which isn't to say that Jean is bad without her, but if you have Furina, or you're planning to get Furina in the future, but you don't have Jean yet, then Jean is the clear best choice here. Because she works so damn well with Furina, like their synergy is out of this world. I've been playing Jean and Furina together ever since Furina was released, and basically you can just put them with any 2 characters and have a 99% chance that the team just works. There are only a very few teams, I think, that don't want the Jean-Furina combo. It's just that good. But like I already said, even without Furina, Jean still isn't a bad character, because she still heals a lot, she can beat enemies, which is more fun than it has any right to be, and you can even build her as a DPS if you want to, and get decent results. Like, she's obviously not a meta DPS, but it kinda works as well. So yeah, she fits in a lot of different teams and is honestly just the most versatile character out of all the standard 5-stars in my opinion. And as for constellations, as much as I love Jean, I have to admit her constellations don't really do that much. Like her C2 is pretty fun, where she increases attack speed and movement speed. But you don't really need constellations for her, she works perfectly fine in C0, which is a good thing, but at the same time it means that if you already have her, then going for constellations on this free 5-star selector might not be the best thing. Unless you want to use her as an Anemo support for Xiao, for example, you need her C4 for that. But yeah, overall Jean is definitely the best choice in my opinion, simply because of her insane synergy with Furina and how versatile she is even without Furina. That just makes her the best standard banner character. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the other characters, because most of them aren't bad either. I think the best ones besides Jean are probably Tighnari and Keqing. These two are just really solid DPS characters that work well in spread and aggro teams respectively. And since there are a bunch of pretty good 4-star characters in both the Electro and the Dendro element, it's not even that difficult to build good teams around them. And both of them have decent constellations as well, though Tighnari's are a bit better, I think. Tighnari's just better in general than Keqing, if I'm not mistaken, but both of them are pretty good, and that's also pretty much all I have to say about them. They are solid, they do what they're meant to do. If you're looking for a DPS, then Tighnari and Keqing are definitely viable choices. Talking about DPS, there's definitely one other character I have to mention here, and that is of course Diluc. He is kind of a special case here, since he actually kind of fell off. He was very good in the beginning of the game, but then got power crept, and then suddenly made a return when Xianyun was released, because Xianyun enables a plunging attack playstyle, and as a Claymore character, Diluc has a pretty good multiplier on his plunging attack. And he also can infuse his own attacks with Pyro, so he actually works really well as a plunge DPS these days, as long as you have Xianyun. If you don't have her, I wouldn't really recommend choosing him, but if you do have her or are planning to get her in the future, then Diluc is definitely a solid choice. And now that we have talked about Diluc, let's talk about the other Pyro Claymore 5-star in the standard banner, Dia. A lot of people would probably call her the worst of the standard 5-stars, and yeah, she's gotten a lot of hate since her release. But I have always been a Dia defender. I think she is way too overhated, and she's not nearly as bad as some people make her out to be. But I wanna try to be as objective as possible here, so I'm not gonna praise her as some kind of super strong DPS or anything like that. The truth is that at Z0 her damage is indeed a bit lackluster, but she's still a good tank and provides some interruption resistance and also off-field pyro application, which is not something a lot of characters do. The only reason people are looking down on Dia's off-field pyro application is that jungling exists. But even though jungling is obviously broken, that doesn't mean that Dia is useless, especially since she is not reliant on energy recharge, since her off-field pyro application comes from her skill actually. And don't even dare comment about Grober, I love that guy, but he can't hit anything. But yeah, Dia is a tank, a defensive support with a bit of off-field pyro, but people really wanted her to be a DPS and then they hated on her for not doing enough damage. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's definitely far from being the best 5-star, but like I already said, she's overhated. She's honestly fine. She's not that bad, not that great, she's just kinda average, but definitely usable. Especially if you have constellations, because here's the thing. With her C1 she actually does deal decent damage, and every single one of her constellations makes her noticeably better. Of course there's the argument that some of the things locked behind her constellations should have been in her kit at C0, but that's a discussion for a different video. The point here is that Dia's constellations are probably some of the most valuable out of all the standard characters, so if you already have her and want to make her better, then it's actually worth going for constellations in my opinion. And also if you have Mualani, she actually kind of works pretty well with her, since her slow pyro application works actually pretty well with Mualani's spaced out hits on her elemental skill. Just want to mention that because, you know, I've recently gotten Mualani and I love playing her with Dia. But yeah, enough about Dia now. If I don't stop myself here, I'm just gonna talk about her for another hour or two, because there's so much I want to say about her and how unfairly she's been treated by the community. But like I already said, that's a topic for a different video. So let's continue with the last two options in this 5-star selector, and I'm gonna try to keep this short and not go off on another tangent like with Dia. So let's talk about Mona next. She's the only Hydro character here and is actually a pretty decent support. She can enable some huge nukes with her burst, though nowadays not a lot of people are still using her since we have so many other good supports now, and of course Farina exists. Which doesn't mean that Mona is bad now, but she just kinda got power crept similar to Diluc, but didn't really have her comeback yet. I mean, she's still absolutely usable if you want to do some big nukes. Her Omen buff still works, you know, but oftentimes it feels like they're just better options, you know. And it also doesn't help that the constellations are not that great. Some of them seem to be more DPS constellations than support constellations. And while it can be fun to play around with the Omen buff and maybe even try Mona as a DPS, and she also does have some off-field Hydro application, overall I wouldn't really recommend choosing Mona nowadays. And last we have Chi-Chi. I have to admit that I actually don't really know much about her, because I haven't ever used her, and I also barely ever see anyone else use her, and yeah, there's probably a reason for that, because she really isn't that good. She's a decent healer as far as I know, but is outclassed by a lot of other healers these days. Like, if you want a healer from this selector, then there's just no reason to choose Chi-Chi over Jean. And as a DPS, Chi-Chi also doesn't really do much either. And her constellations, looking at them, they are nothing to write home about either. So yeah, Chi-Chi, to keep it short, in my opinion, is just the worst choice here. And I really wouldn't recommend her, unless she's your absolute favorite character here. So yeah, that's my take on all these standard banner 5-stars. So just to summarize, I think the best choice is Jean, especially if you have Farina. But even without Farina, Jean is not a bad character. And then Tighnari, Keqing, and Diluc are solid choices, though you kinda need Xiangyong to make Diluc work nowadays. And then Dia, also a solid choice, but a little bit reliant on her constellations. Mona, I would kinda put in the same tier as Dia, but she doesn't need constellations, so C0 is fine for her. And then Chi-Chi, well, she's Chi-Chi. So yeah, that's my list, and now it's finally time for me to make my own choice. First, on my main account, and yeah, here I'm a Jean main. She was my first 5-star character ever, still one of my favorite characters even to this day. I just love Jean, and I want to get her to C6 someday, and yeah, this is gonna be one more step towards that goal. It's gonna be C4, and I don't think there's any point even considering the other characters. I mean, I already told you what I think about them. Dia is also one that I really love, but she's already C4 and my Jean only C3, and Jean is still like my favorite out of all of these. So yeah, long story short, I'm gonna choose Jean here on my main account. Finally getting her C4. Yes, please. There we go. And I'm just gonna go and activate that constellation immediately. And there we go. 40% Anemo rest threat in her burst field. Very good to support some other Anemo characters. But now let's go over to my alt account. And over here I actually haven't built any of the standard characters yet, but I do think I have all of them. Let's see. No constellations, okay, but I'm pretty sure I have him. I don't have Chi-Chi apparently, but not gonna choose her, spoiler alert. Do have C1 Mona. No Kiching. Okay, I did actually not know that. Huh. That might influence my decision. And then we have C1 Tenari and no constellations on Deer. But yeah, here, I think I'm gonna go with Tenari, because I only have one build Dendro character so far, and that is Nahida. But Nahida obviously is more of a support or sub DPS, so I don't really have a Dendro DPS yet. So Tenari could fill out that role. But then again, now that I realized that I actually don't have Kiching here, I thought I had her for some reason, I might actually choose her instead. Because I only have one build Electro character here, and that is Fischl. And Fischl is not bad, don't get me wrong, but once again, I don't really have an Electro main DPS. But I've already built Kiching on my main account, and the point of the auto account is kind of to build different characters. That's why I was like, oh, it's perfect, I'm just gonna choose Tenari and then build him, because I don't have him built on my main account. But yeah, that was when I still thought that I did have Kiching. Man, this is difficult. It's probably better to just choose the character I don't have yet, because I might not ever get her otherwise, until, you know, maybe next year, when there's another 5-star selector, because they said it would be every year. But then again, Daenerys C2 is kinda good, isn't it? But I'm not sure if I need it. I mean, I already have C1, so it's probably really better value to go for a new character, as long as that character isn't Chi-Chi, you know? But yeah, I think I've made my decision now. Originally, I was gonna go for Tenari, but now I think I'm actually gonna go for Kiching, and maybe try her with Nahida someday. Maybe not immediately, because I'm still, you know, trying to build some other characters first, but that's an option I have now, after I choose her. So yeah, let's just do it. There we go. Okay, actually got Kiching now on the auto account. Am I gonna regret this choice? Maybe, I don't know. But like I already said in the first section of this video, I don't think Kiching is a bad choice at all. Probably one of the better characters here, especially because of Aggravate. And Nahida is one of the best teammates in Aggravate, so I can definitely make something work with her. But yeah, those are my choices, Jean and Kiching. And I hope this video was also helpful to you if you haven't chosen your 5-star yet. Tell me in the comments who you ended up choosing, and also like and subscribe for more Genshin and other gacha content. And with that being said, have a nice day.